Hey y'all, so I'm going to do a little demonstration that's going to show you a bit how you could add a little bit of emphasis to your work of art with just a heavier line in some places. So it's hopefully going to look really similar to this one here. There are subtle differences between these two. So at this stage, you're finishing your outlining of your piece. You just have just a thin outline. And what you've got to decide at this point is what areas do you want to thicken up? What areas do you want to leave just the way that they are? And how are you going to emphasize really the focal point of your work? So if you look, really your eye kind of goes from here to here. Really my focal area is more right here. So in doing that, I'm going to focus on the center of this. And what I'll end up doing here is I'm going to end up really emphasizing with a thicker line, this little ribbon looking thing. And I'm actually just using my 01 pen. If you've got a smaller space, even if you're adding thicker lines, use a 01. So I'm just outlining there, and I'm gonna fill in that little space right here. So one thing to think about when you're doing this is if you emphasize this area, would you need to do anything to these other sides right here? You can, but it'll take away the emphasis here. So that's one thing to think about as you're working. So I'm moving down to this little stage. So you've got all these lines right here. So if I took the lines nearest this little focal area and made those dark, what that would do to these lines right here, it would make these lines on the edge a bit unbalanced because there's a whole lot of dark in this section and not a whole lot of light here. So I'm going to leave these two lines alone, and I'm going to add some darkness to these. So I'm still using my 01. I'm just going out. You're welcome on these obviously to use the 03, 05, just depending on your space. I just kind of have a tighter space, honestly, right here. So that's sort of my little issue here. Okay, so I've got this. So you can kind of see there is this attention, and it's kind of like a little triad with what you have with darks, and then you have the lights there that break things up. Another thing that I want to do is I want to draw attention to where this circle overlaps this space right here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm separating my space in the foreground to my space in the background. And one way that you can do that is add the illusion of there's a shadow, there's a little bit of an overlapping. So I'm going to just thicken up my line on either side right there. And then I will, in areas where I perceive maybe there might be a little cast shadow of some sort, I might decide to thicken up some of these lines. On either side of this, just to add a little bit of depth. And I could add a little bit of broken lines if I needed to, but I'm just kind of bringing in a little cast shadow in that little area. So I'm just kind of accenting my lines, and as they fade out, I won't do as much there. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add just a little bit of something here, because you've got some heavy stuff, especially right here, going on. So I'm going to take this little area, at least in one spot. I could in other spots over there, but I'm going to start here, and I'm just going to make these lines quicker, or thicker, excuse me. The reason really truly that I'm using this thin pen, the 01, is simply because I can control it a little bit better, especially in those tighter spaces. You may choose to use the other pens, that's absolutely fine. But that's, y'all, that's basically it, and it should look like that. I'm gonna give y'all some comparisons of some stuff as you go. Now, if you make a line, let's just say that I went a little crazy and I made a line too thick. One thing you could do is you could take this little Jelly Roll pen and you can kind of touch in on those. You may have to do like another little layer, just depending on what you're doing, but you definitely could do that. I'm trying to think of an area where I went too thick right there, but you can go over some of those. So I wouldn't go berserk with this Jelly Roll. It does leave kind of like a gray space in some spot, especially if you've got a heavier line right there, but it does actually help to take out some of that stuff. So I hope that's helpful.